Привіт моїм друзям і родині. Ласкаво просимо до моє відео про моє зелене життя. Я буду тепер говорити англійською. Come sit by fire. I come tell you about how I live green lifestyle. I don't talk like that. I'm just joking. I can't keep that up. But I do have relatives that talk like that. Hi, I'm Marlana. I'm your second favorite Slavic Atheopagan on the internet. I know you have at least one favorite, so I'm happy if I can be your second favorite. um, anyway, I want to put a video together to kind of explain how I've, come to create this project and a little bit how I live my life. I notice that there's a lot of people on different platforms like, Reddit. They talk about how they do things on YouTube, same thing. One channel that I think is really great is Sedna Wu. I just wish she would post more. And the Atheopagan Society. I mean, they had some good videos when they first came out, and I think they they go in directions I don't have anything really in common with. So I see they have a new video and that's great and everything, but like to just talk about like a green lifestyle as an Atheopagan with Ukrainian roots, that's what I'm about. Okay, so I'll just let you know right now. My content is going to be within that umbrella. Okay. It's a project called Talking Moltenka, and I started that project in 2018 under the name You Crazy Canadian. I noticed though that my content wasn't very crazy, and also it translated very badly into Ukrainian. Like I think like if you translate, like it's a play on words, right? You Crazy Canadian. But when a Ukrainian was reading it and trying to translate it, it translated to "You are a crazy Canadian," and it just it was lost in translation, right? Like the play on words didn't work. Anyway, I got into doll making, and I have a few Moltenka dolls around that I've made. I'm also a wand maker. But anyway, I thought, well, I gotta come up with a new name. And I came up with Talking Moltenka because, well, if a Moltenka could talk, what would they say? And also, just to be clear, the word Moltenka, the syllable is stressed on the first Moltenka, because it comes from the Ukrainian word motate, which means to wrap or wind or bind, which is how the doll is made. But in English, we tend to sort of like by no fault of our own, but just by how English naturally sounds, we tend to pronounce it in a way that blends with our English, which is why you'll find that, myself included, a lot of people, I try not to, but a lot of people will pronounce it Motenka, a Motenka doll, which to a Ukrainian sounds really stupid. But in English, it's like that what's her face that she's that Italian TV chef. I can't think of her name, but she's the one that when she's speaking perfect English and then she'll say mozzarella. Oh God, what's her name? I gotta look this up now. Giada De Laurentiis. Okay, Giada. I think that's how you say her name.
A little cube of the smoked mozzarella. In the middle of the little rice balls, traditionally, they put little pieces of mozzarella inside the center.
Okay. I mean, she's not wrong. That's how you pronounce mozzarella. 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 I don't know. Moltenka. Okay, so it's Moltenka. I mean, I do my best. That's how you say it. But sometimes I'll slip when I'm speaking English, and all of a sudden I pronounce it, and I've lost it, and it's into the English pronunciation. It happens. Okay, English is my native language. Okay, so I just wanted to explain, what I'm doing, what my, how I got to to this point, the kind of life I'm living. I'm part of different communities, different platforms that involve Slavic heritage, pagan lifestyle, witchcraft, green lifestyle, that kind of thing. So the best I can describe is that I'm not fooling anybody. I live in modern times. Okay, I'm not going to pretend that I don't. I live in modern times and I benefit from modern devices. But I do my best now, especially now, with looking after our planet, because I care what happens to it after I'm gone. I care what happens to it now. And plus, the lifestyle is just so gratifying. It's so neat to be able to just live more naturally in a green way to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be everything. Some people like to play it off like they live this, hippie, new age, boho, green lifestyle, but they go and drive their cars and go to McDonald's every night. So it's like, okay, like at what point do you say I'm not trying to fool anybody, right? And that's where I kind of got to, was I'm doing my best. I'm living the best lifestyle I can. That's healthy for the planet. That's good for me. And it's within my budget. I can't believe the money I'm saving too. So I'll get into that in just a little bit. But here's how it started. Got my notes. Okay, so when I was young, I really, really wanted to get into my Ukrainian heritage. I wanted to learn the language. I wanted to learn how to cook the food. And I was really, really grateful and fortunate to be the eldest granddaughter in my family and learn a lot from my grandmother. And I remember my cousins being too small to care, too small to really learn how to do things. And then as I got into my teen years, I was at the age where I could drive to their house and spend even more time with them. And again, my cousins not driving age, and they didn't have that, privilege. So I learned a lot through my granny and, of course, my mom, who was the only daughter in the family. So I learned a lot about I don't want to call it homesteading, but I learned a lot about cooking and different things that you do in the house and how things were done in the garden through both of my grandparents. Even though that later on, my own parents didn't really live a green lifestyle. They wanted to live with, technology and new things, like all through into the 70s. They got married in the 60s, into the 70s and 80s. So the other thing about my family is that I was raised without religion. I never went to church. My parents were not religious. And I kind of did the opposite of what like some teens do when they have religious trauma. They want to break out of things because they're realizing things don't work. I was the opposite. I was like, I had no religion. I had no sense of spiritual community, nothing like that. So I thought, well, there has to be something more fulfilling, and I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. I knew it wasn't turning to religion, but I turned to something that made sense for me. So as a teen, without really thinking about it, I got into the occult. So I was doing things like, dabbling in tarot, astrology, palmistry, and that kind of thing. I even had a pendulum, learned, the dowsing, whatever you do there. But to me, it was purely fun. I didn't make much of it. Some people said I was a good reader with the tarot cards, but I basically kind of saw through it. I saw it as a bit of a carny act, because I could flip over cards and make them make sense, and I kind of read the reader, or read the Carrant, a little bit of a carny act. So I was not fooling myself, and I think that's the difference between a lot of people who take themselves very seriously. Is Penn and Teller did a whole episode on it in their series, Penn and Teller Bullshit, and they got to know how these readers, so-called psychics and mediums, how they basically picked up on cues from the person and would just run with things and go from there. So I thought, ah, okay, so you can pretty much read for anybody and say something to make them happy. Cool. I didn't like that, so I basically did it just for kicks. I did not ever take it seriously, and even to this day, I don't. Sorry, that's the atheist in me speaking. Okay, so when I was in my late teens, I ended up getting a job at a nursery, a garden nursery. And this was pivotal for me because I was surrounded by people who were like they just got out of university, and they were horticulturalists that I work with. And they understood how plants worked. So they were at my disposal. If I had a question about something, they could answer it. So it wasn't just about what, plants could do for you in an aesthetic way. But I got into herbs that way. And because of my staff discount, I was able to load up on a bunch of pots and plants, and I went home. I still lived with my parents at the time, but I learned how to keep herbs. Okay, so then I moved out of the house. I got into my career and kind of lost touch with a lot of that stuff. And as a treat to myself, I had earned enough money to go on holiday to Germany for the spring of 1998. So I was 24, and I had friends in Germany at the time, and we were in a camper, and we went like ganz Deutschland. We were all over the country, and one of the places that we went to was the Harz Mountains. It was in late April, and the celebration was going on for a couple days anyway, and it was Walpurgisnacht, and that is basically Beltane, if you want to speak in Celtic or West European terms. It was the fire celebration in spring, was the rebirth of spring. So, there were thousands of people there. And I remember I stupidly asked my friends, are there real witches here? To which she said, yeah, maybe. And I thought, neat. Okay. But anyway, it was a really important time because I got to see a sense of community with people that had nothing to do with religion. This was now a whole different group of people, and they had ideas on how to live their lives that to me seemed very healing for the earth, and they were having an amazing time. So people who were pagan, or they were witches, or they were living by modern means, they all got together and enjoyed it. But the bottom line is that what I got out of that was opening my eyes to something very new that I didn't know about. I was just playing around with tarot cards before. I didn't really know. So I moved, and I lived in this one middle market town for my work. I was about 25 by this time, and I found others that wanted to form a community based on paganism. And to be clear, it was not Wiccan, it was pagan practices. The only thing was, and I was with them for years, the only thing was they were focused on Western European traditions and ideas. Now, remember, I'm very connected to my Ukrainian heritage, and I just did not feel like I was fitting in. But I got the gist of paganism this way. If we had questions, we asked each other's. We each had a strength we could give each other, and we were celebrating the holidays. But everything was pagan. And I don't mean to sound cynical, but it's like when you go to the store, every Llewellyn book out there is all about Celtic biased books, mostly in Celtic names, and this Western European kind of idea that we've all come to know as being, well, I guess that's pagan, and that's not the whole picture. So, anyway, I stuck with them, but I just felt like, I don't know if culturally this is where I fit in because I'm not British. I don't fit in with this. Anyway, I stayed with them for a long time, but I did end up moving. And then in 2010, I went through a lull in life where I was busy with my work, and then I had different experiences going on in my life. And then in 2010, I took an aromatherapy course just out of interest. I saw it somewhere, and I thought, oh, I'd like to take this. And so going back to my time working with plants and herbs, and now I'm learning about the oils, the essential oils, and how to blend them together and make things for myself. I actually got so involved. It was, again, another pivotal moment in my life. I thought, wow, I can make my own stuff. And it was really neat. And I remember one time, this is just a little story. I remember it was really hot this one summer, and I went to bed and I was hot and my back was itchy because it was so hot. And I thought, man, it'd be nice to have something like a cooling powder I can dust on my sheets before I go to bed at night, like a cooling powder. And I learned, oh, wait a minute, you can do that. I learned how to, blend the oils. I used certain oils that were good for cooling, cured the powder, and then kept it in a jar. And then at nighttime, I took a puff or a duster or whatever, and I would dust the bed with it at night. And then when I got into bed, the sheets were all nice and cool. So I thought, oh, this is so neat. I did this. Like, I would buy this in the store if I saw it, packaged. But I made it. I made it myself with my own stuff. I didn't have to pay anything, well, other than pay for the ingredients naturally. But, it's a fraction of the cost of what I would have paid to buy something like this at the body shop or something. So I found that very interesting. So a couple of years after that, I met my husband. Now, my husband is 100% indigenous, and he already was in touch living a very natural life off the land because he came from a very remote community. And how we met is a long story. I don't want to get into it. But me being a city girl and him being very remote, we were a very interesting couple. So, but he was already fishing and hunting and providing for himself. So when we got together, at that time I was living in Vancouver in the middle of everything. So I had access to everything all the time. And I kind of felt empty, like I wasn't really happy. Here I was surrounded by millions of people all the time. And here I was surrounded by stuff and places to shop. And although that's, it's kind of a novel idea to do that, it was not fulfilling. So anyway, we met, we got married a couple years later, and we moved someplace where we could afford to buy a house. And so now we got two places. We have one on the Pacific Ocean, and we got the other one in the canyon, in Fraser Canyon, in the mountains. And so remember, I have this all my life, this burning desire to learn my language and traditions. Finally, I got an opportunity. I was doing a search, and I found a language course for Ukrainian in 2019. This project happened in 2018, and I wanted to use it as like a language learning kind of project to, see how my language skills progressed. But then I got into reading more about the history of my family and my ancestors, and learned how they did things, how they homestead. So a lot of that was starting to kind of come together for me. So remember, I've had my introduction to plants, my introduction to witchcraft and a community, a coven if you want to call it. I had my introduction to oils and learning how to sustain a more natural lifestyle, like through my husband. He taught me a lot of things. So then all of a sudden in 2020, COVID happened and it brought the world to its knees, right? So everything was locked down. So we had to think really quickly, how are we going to adapt to this? How long will this go on for? So one of the things, and I implore you, if you're interested in any of this, learn to cook, learn to make your own food, because it's huge. Not only is it better for you, it's cheaper. You know where your food is coming from. You know how safe you are with your own hand washing and food, food safety. I can't stress it enough. Like, we were doing things like we would order pizza takeout, and then I thought, what am I doing? And I learned how to make my own pizza. And it's amazing. It's a deep dish pizza. It took about a year to tweak as I went along, but I finally got it down, and I learned how to make a delicious deep dish pizza that's just like takeout. It's better than takeout. But a couple other changes that I made was I did my own hair. So I was traveling to a different city, and I was dropping like $200 a visit to get my hair cut and colored. And then I realized, wait a minute, I can do this myself. I've been getting my hair done since I was 13. I pretty much know the drill. I know the process, so I can do it. And I have been doing it now. At the time of this video being made, it's 2024. And for the last 4 years, this is me. I have done my own hair, saving me a lot of time and a lot of trips going somewhere where someone's just going to do it wrong. So, other changes that I made was I stopped driving my car and I began riding my bike. I can't even tell you how much better that is, not just for, saving money on fuel, but physically. It's the exercise that I didn't really realize I was missing out on, the fresh air and I actually felt more connected to community riding my bike than in my car. When I'm in my car, I'm all encased by glass and metal. When you're on your bike, you're actually out in the open, and when people, are walking by you or something, they'll say hi to you. And it's like, wow, I missed out on this for a long time. So yeah, park the car, but we still use the car. We use it when we have to drive long distance, or if we have to transport heavier items. But for everything else, where we live, it's the bike. And I got a bike rack to put on the back of the vehicle. So now I even just take the bike with me. So if I park somewhere where I can kind of get away with not paying for parking far enough away, and then bike in to do stuff, I'll do it that way. We were also pop drinkers. I hate to admit this, but that's our addiction. So we stopped buying pop and we were making it on our own. So we bought a soda stream and syrup. And we've basically, the amount of time that we've used it, it paid for itself after 3 months. And we don't have the clutter. We don't have the room in the storage where we're, keeping the pop. We don't have to worry about taking the pop cans back. We're using recyclable bottles to keep the pop in. And I make it fresh all the time. Tissue boxes, that's another thing that we used a lot. And so we started using washable handkerchiefs. So, instead of going through a box of tissue every 2 days, now it sits on the bathroom counter for over a week, which is really a long time for us. So I'm glad for that. We've gotten into the habit of doing that. Okay, this is going to sound really personal, but it is very important. If you are someone that is menstruating, you might want to look into this. I'm not going to, get into this too deep, but you might want to think about reusable, washable, feminine products. There are some products on Etsy that are really, really nice. They're made of bamboo velour, and they feel good, and they're easy to keep. And I think I determined after 6 months they paid for themselves. So I did that some time ago, and I'll tell you, after looking into that waxy, plasticky type crap that you buy for single use, that stuff doesn't break down. Up to 800 years it's going to stay on the planet. So compared to some textiles. Cheaper, feel good, better for the planet. Yes, I think so. Okay, finally, where we're living now, I started to grow food that means something to us. So we do keep a little garden here. So I'm just adapting to what we have, and I'm learning and picking up things that I learned when I was younger. So, with thanks to gardening tips from where I worked and through my grandparents, I'm able to keep a garden and keep items that mean something to me, like onions and carrots and peppers and stuff like that. And because my husband had built a greenhouse, it serves as similarly to a root cellar. So we can, like for example, the items in there right now we'll keep for the winter months in there too. So I can just pop in there like a little store and get what I want out of it. Now the other thing is I just want to say I live a realistically modern life. Okay, so it's not like I've stopped what I'm doing and I'm like denying that we have these things around us that are beneficial, like the technology, like our vehicles, and this kind of thing. I get it. We live in modern times, and I don't want to kid people into thinking that I'm doing something that is primitive. Okay, like I do things, but I do things in a way that I like to know that I'm looking after nature at the same time. Like the products I'm using on my face, the cosmetics I'm using are cruelty free and they're healthy for the environment. The clothes that I'm wearing, I want to make sure that I'm wearing things that weren't, made without, good ethics in mind, or, with materials that won't break down, in nature. I know that whatever is going on with me, my body and, and the things about me will break down in quicker time than if I'm using other things. This is why when I go into like subreddits where people talk about leaving offerings and stuff like this, it just burns me up when I read about people that want to do this whole primitive thing and like leave food in like a wild park because they think that they're leaving an offering. And for me, it's beyond me anyway because I'm not spiritual. But I would say to somebody, if you're doing something like that and it means that much to you, wrap your item, your sacrifice. I don't even think people know what a sacrifice really means, but this is where I agree with Magda Lewandowska from Vitya. I don't agree and didn't like her tone with how she perceives people that are not from Slavic countries, including people who have Slavic ancestry that now live in immigrant countries. I resent that, and I've podcasted about that. But what I agree with her on is how people treat a so-called sacrifice. So when you go to the store and you get a slab of meat and you want to go and make an offering in the forest, you're actually doing more harm than good. Okay? You're going to put crap out there that will attract who knows what. That meat will not be able to be eaten by anything except for pests. If another animal comes by and normally doesn't have that in their diet, you're doing more harm to wildlife than you think. And all for what? You just paid $15 for a slab of meat, and it wasn't really a big sacrifice, was it? A sacrifice is a sacrifice. It's something that you worked hard and you worked hard for, or treasure, that it would be painful to let it go. Okay, that's a sacrifice. And one of the things Magda talks about is like sacrificing money and your time. Those are two things you can't get back. So when you go to the store and you buy a slab of meat and it really didn't mean much to you to go and buy it, and then you want to wrap it up all fancy and leave it in the forest, to me, you're not really doing anyone any favors. So as an environmentally aware person, I would tell people, if you really want to do that, at least have the respect to wrap up the item in biodegradable material, do your, ritual, and then when you're done, if either bury it really well so that nothing can get at it, or else take it home with you and dispose of it with your organics. So then I had people all mad at me in like the Rodnavari group who were like, "You can't do that. That's awful," and all this other stuff. And I'm like, "Hey, I live in modern times, baby. Okay, I am not messing around with trying to make people believe that we're living in the year 675. Okay, like things are different now. We have to take care of how this planet is, because it's not the way it was, like 1500 years ago, or even a couple hundred years ago before the industrialization era. We're living in a time where we are seeing what we do is damaging the planet, and you want to add to it to have like a ritual that, like, I don't agree. I don't agree. Maybe you agree. I don't know. But to me, it makes more sense to look after what you have around you rather than make it worse. And to me, I don't know. To me, it just seems like when you get into stuff like that, I'm just sitting on a soapbox right now, sorry. But it just seems like you're not doing it for the right reasons. I'm sorry, but you're not. And if you think that you're doing something and your ancestors really care about it, do they? Or is that you trying to make yourself feel better for the wrong actions that you're taking, the things that are actually damaging to the earth? It really burns me up when people try and justify that. And I say, look, we're living in modern times. Let's not pretend we're not. So as much as we want to tap into our own, natural lifestyle and do things more simple, save some money, do more things at home, grow your own food, make your own things, stop buying single item disposable things and start making your own items, or buying items that can be reused and washed or recycled or whatever. Think about what you're doing. We're living in modern times, and it's admirable that you want to tap into yourself that would have been alive 500 years ago, but we're not living in those times anymore. So leaving a slab of meat in the forest, to me, is irresponsible and dangerous. I I'm sorry, on the soapbox, guys, I'm sorry, but I highly urge you to not do that. That if you do want to leave what you think is a sacrifice, rethink what your sacrifice really is. Rethink of why you need to do this in the forest. Okay, like if you're leaving something as an offering to the spirits of your ancestors, why are they in the forest? Why are they in Manning Park? It doesn't make any sense. Your ancestors, if anything, they're going to be closer to you and your soul, around you and at home. So I would do something like that. I would do something to make it more organic and safe for the environment. I could go on about this and make another video, really, but that's just where I've come from. Okay, so this is how this project is. If you've found me anywhere on like Reddit or Twitter or anything like that, that's who I am and that's how I live my life. So I thank you very much for watching and for putting up with me during this. As for my lives, I did put on my on the site, the talkingmotenka.com, that I will be doing lives on Monday, but that just isn't happening during the fall and winter months because it's not aligning with my schedule right now. So I may pick it up for the spring and summer. Otherwise, I'd be doing it in the daytime, and I don't think anybody would be watching me. So I may as well just make YouTube videos, right? Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. Drinking lavender tea, by the way, that I grew myself and harvested the flowers on my own, made in a pottery mug made by a company that is local here. So very beautiful stoneware. So that's what I mean. Enjoying life a simple way, a beautiful way that is good for my budget and makes me happy. And that's what it's all about, right? You do something that makes you feel good and makes you happy. So I wish you a fantastic day and thank you for hanging out with me for a little while. I pamiętaj, zробити щось про мене для себе сьогодні, which means remember, do something nice for yourself today. Побачимось.